Well, you've just heard from the three of us sitting here, and we're joined in the flesh with Alex from the European Commission, and hopefully we've got our colleague, Mr. Nakagawa, joining us from Japan. Do we have the Japanese rep with us? You're there. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Can you hear what we're doing over here?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for coming back online. And we've got 20 minutes or thereabouts, a little bit more actually. And you've heard some really great keynote speakers, and you've heard three of us talking, and there are a number of themes emerging here. One of them, I believe, is that if you look at the here and now, there is really an awful lot going on out there in the world of autonomous shipping. The regulatory framework is working very hard, and, you know, applause to the IMO people and everything that's going on there. And, of course, they're having to, in a way, they have an advantage because they can learn from the real experience of people who are doing this. But of course, what they've got is a very difficult task. And you've heard about the non-mandatory code that will emerge, we're told, and then that could translate into a mandatory code. And then several people have got differing views about whether whether or not we see amendments to the instruments themselves. But we've now got a chance to take questions, firstly from those of you who are here in Japan House, and secondly, we are able to see questions on Zoom. So with a bit of luck, I can see that on a screen here. But rather than ask questions myself, you've been sitting patiently listening to all this, so the chances for you to probe into some of the subjects that have been covered, and I'd welcome anybody with questions out there. We have a microphone hovering, waiting to come. So anybody out there want to open up the question and answer session? Yes. Can we get a microphone to you, please? Would you please make it clear who you are, and then we'll go.
Thank you, expert, for the very able presentation. I'm JLIS1 from Hong Kong, China. I have two questions. The first one for Mr. Basavi. In my option, the SAR operation aims to save life at sea. In case a mass vessel is in distress, it is going to SAR operation or going to salvage operation? This is my first question. The second question is for Captain Nakamura. I'm wanting to know who will set up the mass control center, by shipping company or by AI company? Thank you. That's my two questions.
You get that? Did you understand the question?
Yes, yes.
Can we take the second question first? Can I ask you to?
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much for question. Yeah, in this time, so our shipping company, so NYK Airlines is the center of the consortium. Then we discuss with all concerned party, then making to the consortium. Will be established. Sorry, too.
Could you repeat the question with the microphone?
Yeah, sorry.
So for your reply, I can understand the mass control center will be established by shipping company, right?
Sorry, come again.
The mass control center will be set up by shipping company. My understanding is right?
No, sorry. This is not only shipping company. Our consortium set up to that fleet operation center for demonstration.
Okay.
Can I try and provide another bit of an answer to this? If you look at a maritime autonomous system, you should think of a vessel. You should think of the communications that stretch to the sky and across, you know, on other communications levels. But then it's intimately linked with the remote control center. And I think this is what you've been asking. Did I understand the question right? It's going to be a combination of those that the humans that are in the remote control center. Is this specifically with regard to search and rescue or more generally? Are you asking about search and rescue or?
From my understanding, SAR operation aims to save the life at sea, but not property. So in case one muscle vessel in streets, we are going to SAR operation or are going to salvage contract. Thank you.
Okay. Did you get the point there? I mean, I think one of the things that most people would agree is that if there is nobody on board a vessel, it is very unlikely that that vessel will be able to actually save life at sea specifically. I know that some companies are looking hard at the opportunity of self-releasing life belts and so on and so on. So if there was an incident, 4 cables on the starboard beam, and you have people in the water, and the nearest vessel is a mass, then there may be, and I stress maybe, an opportunity. I would suggest to you that this will largely depend on the area of likely operations. If this mass is going to be operating in congested waters, the company that owns it is probably more likely to say, we would like to be able to contribute to rescue. But in reality, the work I've been doing indicates that they are probably not going to be the first choice of the scene of, the SAR commander, the scene of action commander. They're going to be, it's going to be somebody else who either is deployed. That could be an air asset. It could be a sea asset. That isn't the point. So, where they can contribute is by providing almost immediate live feed, real-time pictures and sound of what's going on, which the scene of action commander will need when he makes his decisions about how these people are going to be rescued. But I don't want you to think for a minute that MASS is abrogating responsibility. Not at all. They will do everything that they possibly can, but the most likely thing is that they will, as I said in my speech, they will be part of the search package rather than the rescue package, which is so much part of the same thing. You asked another question, I think, of me, which is about salvage. Well, of course, in the design of these vessels, depending on where they're operating, it's going to be extremely important that the ability to salvage a mass with nobody on board, i.e. a salvage vessel, a tug comes along and has to take a vessel that is stranded, stricken, no longer working, and take it under tow. There will need to be the facilities for that to happen on board. And that I can assure you is certainly part of the thinking that I'm working on in the design of ships, particularly some over 24 meters, i.e. not the small, one of the terms that one hears is mini-mass, but sub-24, sub-SOLAS. It's going to be very important that we don't end up with ships that can't be rescued, salvaged. Your question.
Thank you. One more question for Mr. Billington. Yes, about mass people.
Yes.
Which one is more important between the knowledge of navigation and AI knowledge for mass people?
Well, I think you have to have a knowledge of navigation to be able to man a ship or to crew and to be in charge of a vessel. You have to understand navigation. AI we need to think about it as an aid to navigation. So is the human always going to be responsible for the vessel? The answer is yes. They will, most regulatory bodies will say the human has to be in charge or somebody has to be legally responsible for that vessel. So therefore, what we should do is make sure that there is an understanding of how the AI or how any sort of machine learning or any other decision-making system, how it makes its decisions and how it does things. And that is very important, but you have to understand the basics of navigation as well to be able to understand that context. So, yes.
I wonder if I could ask that question to the EU. I mean, you've obviously given a lot of thought to this. Alex, do you have a view on it?
Well,
Technology failure. Stand by.
I hope you can all hear me well now.
Yeah, it'll work.
Yes, for our part, these discussions are only at the very beginning, and we have given thought to it. Yes, what qualifications are needed to become such an operator in a remote operation center, but this is far from being concluded. We have heard that in practice there is quite a considerable number of people from new backgrounds attracted to these remote operating centers. People who go beyond master mariners, who may come from completely different setups, even going as far as video gaming, for instance. But it is in the skills how to operate a machine remotely. So we would think that there is need for certification for the necessary diplomas, but how much knowledge of navigation is needed of previous navigation at sea? This is something that we will need to establish over the coming years, and is not yet possible to say from our perspective.
I think if I could add a rather generalistic statement, we should stick to the bounds of STCW as the guiding set of documents that will be relevant. And I know that some people are very nervous that you've got computer kids in a remote control center who've never set foot on a vessel and have no idea what life at sea is like. I hope that that isn't actually going to be specifically the case. It may be they have certain functions in the remote control center, but they will have to be supervised by people who know better, who've got the experience. So we're going to learn on this. Can I go to our Japanese speaker? Do you have a view from the Japanese coast on this subject, please, on people? I hope you can hear me.
Is it a question to me?
Do you have a view on this question about, you know, who's going to be...
Oh, sorry, I can't hear you. Please use the microphone, please.
Can you turn my microphone up?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'll hold it. The question is that the questioner asked about the qualifications and whether or not it's going to be necessary for people in remote control centers to have had specific seagoing experience, if I could summarize it like that. And the answers that we've given are that in general, yes, we would expect that, but there may be some people in remote control centers who won't have that, but they'll have other skills. And so I wondered if you had a view on this. What, you know, you gave us the view of, you know, what's going on in Japan. What thoughts have you had on the people side of all this?
This is my personal opinion, but definitely I believe some qualification is necessary, because the navigation of the vessel that have to comply with the some rules like Corregu and other domestic rules as well. So the operator of the vessel, even that carried out from the onshore operation center, the personnel needs the qualification, which should know the all rules for the navigation of the vessel. So that is my answer. Is it enough?
Thank you. I've got a question online here, which is related. I'll read it, and it's in the chat on Zoom. One very difficult task is to conciliate all concerns about the supervision and control personnel organization, which will certainly be a particular STCW for the MASS family. I guess this will depend also on the classes of MASS vessels. How do you see this big challenge to be stabilized? The questioner is asking by IMO, since it will need a consensus of all participant countries. Now, some of you are IMO experts. I hope you can hear what I've just read out, but you can probably see it on Zoom. Captain, do you have a view on that question that I've just given, or do you want to pass on it? Can you see it? It's here. Can I go back to you? Did you hear my question? It's related. It's how are we going to get the 170 odd nations in IMO to agree on what's actually needed?
Yes. Actually, if we need to amend the STCW, in that case, the consensus in the IMO is definitely necessary. So that is the simple answer.
It is
a question.
Answer to achieve. As anyone who's spent time in IMO will know. Perhaps I could give you another example of work that is related to this. You've seen examples where you've got a small 12-meter vessel operating very close to a rig, and indeed we haven't mentioned them, but wind farms. And the keepers and standards of dynamic positioning in the world are the Nautical Institute based here in London. They set up the requirements, and they are responsible for making sure that standards are maintained. This is DP generally. Well, DP specific to unmanned vessels has created a huge amount of work for Mr. Lloyd and his people at the Nautical Institute. And we've now got a document that's been released which lays down what the requirements are. One of the most difficult things always, and it can be nothing more than a discussion point for today, is how much practical experience do you have to be qualified to control an unmanned vessel within 500 meters of, say, an oil rig? You know, do you have to do the same amount as you would if you were doing DP in a vessel, or can it be done partly live, partly remotely? A lot of thought has been given to this, but it is an example of where we've already spent a lot of time corporately thinking about what requirements there are. I'm going to move on. Thank you for your question. You've generated some interesting answers. Is there anyone in the room that wishes? Yes, I've seen somebody with their hand up. Can we have a microphone passed down your way, please? Jesus. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank Jans for this opportunity. And my name is Motonobu Tsuchiya. I'm currently working for Liberian Registry. But when I joined this mass work as a part of UK mass working group, I was representing the Classification Society. And then I moved on industry NGO and now currently working for Flag Administration. The background of my question, allow me to explain why I'm raising a question. The IMO regulatory scoping exercise identifies 4 levels of the autonomous shipping. The first 2 levels is talking about manned mass, and the last 2 levels is unmanned mass. I personally originally thought that this is opportunity to enhance safety of the manned vessel. Technology is there to, and also fatigue relief, etc. All those things have been addressed today, like unmanned one-man bridge operation during the period of darkness and the STCW convention, which is currently not allowed, and the trial has been banned. And then auto docking and auto mooring technology is there, but that requires amendment to the SOLAS convention. And repeatedly explained today, decision-making support, the technology is there. And but that could be done by perhaps a sort of enhanced alpha function. And that is just straight into the amendment to the alpha performance standard. A lot of technology supporting sensors, etc., may negate the need of the breathability requirement currently imposed by SOLAS regulation, SOLAS Chapter 5 Regulation 23. So all technology is there for supporting manned vessel. But because everything has been swallowed into the mass, i.e. Unmanned, including unmanned mass, everything is put on hold for several years now. And as Mr. Marumoto this morning clearly stated, we haven't had clear definition of mass yet. The MSC 105 is decided to address mass on function, each function, rather than total ship function. So that is and also in that relation, that is partly linking with the machine-to-machine communication between ship and shore, which IMO will address during the FAR committee next week as a part of the maritime single window. The question here I have is, are we really looking into unmanned mass or looking into some possibility to leave essential crew on the ship? And then, if we really looking into the totally unmanned mass, have we ever looked into the connectivity issue between ship and shore? You may recall that, maybe I'm too old, but when we introduced GMDSS, we have done the network traffic analysis for enhanced group call. How many ships can be in the particular sea area, and how many data is needed for one burst of the enhanced group call. And everything has been confirmed, and then we introduced GMDSS, including enhanced group call. So you have data for each project, how many data traffic is needed. But have you looked into the possibility whether that can support 10 ships in the area, or 100, or 1,000?
Thank you. You ask an obviously very relevant question. One point I would start from, and others may not necessarily agree with me, is that if we start trying to work this from a view where we'll start with just less people on board a particular vessel, and then see how that works, and then move on, I can assure you that my personal experience and knowledge is that you will not be able to build a business case to do it that way. If you're going to make a business case to achieve all this, one of the things you have to do is to remove all the people from the ship, which draws the power requirement down, which removes a lot, if not all, of the SOLAS requirements, and so on and so on. Now, these are all, in some people's minds, very controversial subjects. But I think we should work on the principle that we are genuinely talking about unmanned. And that's, as a principle, as an assumption, call it what you like, is really important. The second thing is, yes, there's an awful lot of work that's gone into traffic analysis. One of the things that I think we are not necessarily very good at is understanding data. A lot of people have tried to put a value to data. A lot of companies spend a lot of money trying to avoid their data being used for other purposes other than their own. It's a very complicated subject. But I can assure you that there is a huge amount of information available about what requirements you have in terms of bandwidth and all of this stuff. If, I come from a military background, so, you won't be surprised to know I used to look at this quite in some detail. If we work on one simple premise, technology exists to move the data we need between ship and shore, shore and ship, and importantly, which you did not mention, ship to ship and back. It exists. It's there. And of some of the technological requirements, I won't say it's the easiest because that's nonsense, but I will say that the technology is basically in place and can be used or amended for that particular role. Now, on that note, time is tight. I'm going to pass the message down. Ivor, you've done work on this.
Yes, yeah, we've done quite a lot over the years, and not just in the maritime world, but also in the aviation industry. Many years ago, I was part of the CESAR JU project, which is Single European Skies, from the UK's perspective. Now, one of the big issues is interoperability that was mentioned earlier, but how do people communicate? How the data sets, how do they come in, and how do you pick it up? So we know we've got AIS. in aircraft, you use ADS-B, which is a certain type of protocol, and you know which message sets come in. Now, when the Cesar program went live, everybody had the right equipment, everybody used it, it was all set through. Within, I would say, about a week, the systems were crashing left, right, and center because they couldn't handle, and this was only at 10% of what they were expecting to go through. The systems couldn't handle it, and it ended up with a 3-year delay as they tried to sort it out. So it is a massive issue, but where you are talking about with decision support systems, that is a really important thing. And yes, that is separate from MASS or uncrewed surface vessels, because this is a specific thing, and ships, decision support is decision support whether you've got people or not. So, today talking about uncrewed vessels for me, yeah.
Alex, do you have a key point?
Yes. So from our perspectives, I wouldn't be so sure we would only see this dichotomy between no people on board and fully manned vessels. I think there is so many degrees of variability between this. As we have the different categories here of mass defined, we will probably see that for certain functions, it is so much easier to replace humans on board. So I think we'll see a graduality there. Also, it will over time become easier to replace the humans on board in certain functions. So no matter actually whether we start with fully unmanned vessels or not, the background, I think, still is the same. All the ships have to communicate with each other and be able to do so safely. So even if a couple of functions are automated or all of them are automated, this mixed traffic situation is the one that needs to be cleared. Now, we can open up the discussion whether the levels identified by IMO will still be valid in the long term, in the future. Technology is also evolving, but I think there is a certain reasoning also in having a few members of crew still on board. It may not be necessarily in the navigating functions, but it may well be for the maintenance of the ship, or just for having someone there to take over in case of emergency. So this might also then touch on insurance aspects, for instance. So I think these discussions are only at the very beginning, and we'll need to see how this goes.
Okay. And thereby hangs the difference between uncrewed and unmanned under IMO definitions, which is quite interesting. I'm just going to whip back to Japan for any final thoughts on what we've been discussing. We need to close this session now, otherwise people won't get their Japanese lunch.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a very difficult discussion. I understand, and but so far, the Nippon Foundation, we believe and our aim is, we need to tackle to the shortage of the seafarers, and also reduce the burden of the seafarers as well. So we don't aim the fully unmanned vessels at this moment. Just the vessels can be navigated unmanned, but the seafarers should be on board the vessel. So that is our concept of the fully autonomous ship. So maybe in the future, fully unmanned vessels, already some companies and manufacturing companies and also the shipping companies intending to introduce such unmanned vessels. But so at least the Nippon Foundation, we don't aim the fully unmanned at this moment. So that is my answer. And actually, the level of the autonomous we are aiming is level 4. It's equivalent to the automotive industries. It's hand-free and hands off, eyes off, and mind off sometimes. So that is the that what I can say. The at this moment, reasonable way to introduce the autonomous vessels. So that is the answer. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for staying up. I don't know what the time is in Japan, but it must be. We do have one other question which has come in on Zoom. I'm only going to refer to it, and that is the question about how many ships an autonomous operator in a remote control center will be able to control. Suffice to say that there's an awful lot of work that's going into that. From my perspective, have a look at the UK Code of Practice online, and you'll see the answer there, which has been drafted in cahoots with, among other, E4 and his boss, Gordon Meadow. It's a shame we haven't got time for more questions. It's just getting lively and interesting and exciting. But thank you to all those in the room who asked questions, and to you on Zoom who asked, and to you out there in Japan. Thank you very much from the moderator, and I will shrink back down to being nobody again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your input and constructive discussion and contributions. Thank you very much. So we will commence tomorrow at 11 a.m. GMT. So doors open 30 minutes prior. And I am very welcome to your input from our audience through questionnaires. So see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.